What does a company do when it releases a monumental piece of media? Do they try and change things up with a sequel? Or do they try and improve where their previous release lacked? No, this isn't about Terminator 2, even though what I just said could be applied to that as well. But this, however, is about Resident Evil 2. If the title didn't give that away. And if you know even the slightest bit about it, then you know how much love and praise it has gotten ever since its release in 1998, with it pretty much being a contender for best in the series, along with Resident Evil 4 and the Resident Evil 1 remake. I'm gonna be honest with you right away here. This video will be no different when it comes to the praise this game gets. It's a straight up great video game, and I'd be lying or trying to be edgy if I said so otherwise. But this will still be a review, because no game is perfect. So, before we get to the story, let's begin with how this game came to be. 1 month after Resident Evil 1 released, the development of Resident Evil 2 began. And just like the first one, this development was plagued with issues. One of the writers for the first game, Kenichi Iwao, had an outline for the story of Resident Evil 2. So with that covered, Capcom assigned the producer's position to none other than Shinji Mikami, who in turn chose a new hire named Hideki Kamiya to be the game's director. With the production of Resident Evil 2 now in full force, the game was set to release in May of 1997. Along the way though, Mikami and Kamiya had disagreements on the game's direction, with Mikami attempting to sway the development team's direction towards his own ideas. This did not last though, and he eventually settled on an overseer role where he'd be shown the game once a month. The game he oversaw never saw the light of day though. Well, as a full release that is. The game that was cancelled is known as Resident Evil 1.5, and it had Kamiya taking the reins along with some new and some old developers from the first Resident Evil game. Production actually lasted for quite a while, with them saying that the game was almost 80% complete by the time of its cancellation. The reason for it being canned was explained by Shinji Mikami, who said that it wouldn't have reached their desired quality, and that the gameplay and locations were dull and boring. So, with that, they all agreed to start from scratch. Except for a few things, that is. Resident Evil 1.5 would have starred a rookie cop named Leon S. Kennedy, and Elza Walker, a student and professional motorbike racer. Leon, as I'm sure you know, stayed, with poor Elza getting scrapped, with her being replaced by Claire Redfield, the sister of Chris from Resident Evil 1. Claire did retain some of Elza's attributes and backstory though, so she wasn't fully gone in a sense. There were also a couple minor things they could salvage from 1.5, but not much that would help expedite the release of the game. The major thing that got the boot though was the story of Resident Evil 2. It was at first intended to be the conclusion of the series, but supervisor Yoshiki Akamoto wasn't having any of that shit, because this genius had the foresight of the series continuing further than just 2 games. So, he brought on board screenwriter Noboru Sugimura to rewrite the story. And funnily enough, Noboru would stick around to write for a lot more games for Capcom afterwards. With the story now being completely remade, Mikami stayed in that overseer role, while Kamiya directed. The release date was now set to January of 1998, which was pretty much 1 whole year from when they scrapped and restarted development. Just like Resident Evil 1, the game's graphics went through multiple stages, and by the end of development, the game looked absolutely stunning by 1998 standards. So, did all of this work pay off? Well, you know the answer to that, but this is my video, damn it. So I get to answer that with a resounding yes. The game was showered with critical acclaim, with the PlayStation version holding an 89 on Metacritic. It became the fastest selling PlayStation 1 game at its release, and sold 380,000 copies that same week. It would later sell over 1 million copies in North America, and 1.9 million in Japan. But it wouldn't stop there, and the sales kept rising, with it culminating in just the 2 games in the series selling over 11 million copies by 1999. Those aren't numbers to scoff at, especially around that time. Just like the first game, there are 2 playable characters to start with, that being Leon S. Kennedy and Claire Redfield. The big difference between this game and the first one is something called the zapping system. So whichever character you choose first will be put into something called the A scenario. And after its completion, the character you didn't choose will be put into the B scenario. Big shock, I know. This creates a whole lot of different experiences in the game, as there is up to 4 different scenarios you can play through. That being Claire A and Leon B, or Leon A and Claire B. The choices you make throughout your first scenario can also impact your B scenario. It's not super in-depth as it sounds though. Like, unlocking doors in one playthrough won't keep them unlocked in the next. Or clearing a room of zombies in your first playthrough doesn't leave an empty room for the other character. It comes down to certain choices and items you pick up. But it doesn't count for every item in the game though, as it probably would have been a nightmare to base the entire experience around this. I'll go in more in depth with this as the video goes on, but I'm just throwing that out there right now. Alright, my quota has been met with the whole introduction of this game, so let's get straight to the story of Resident Evil 2. Oh, and before I do, I'm going to cover the agreed upon canon playthroughs of Resident Evil 2, which are Claire A and Leon B. But I will also quickly gloss over the flip versions afterwards, since there are some interesting differences in them. Okay, now let's take a look at Resident Evil 2. Since we are starting with Claire, the story starts with her arrival to an extremely quiet Raccoon City. She investigates a nearby diner, and in a scene that pretty much mirrors the first game, she is met with her first zombie. Since she's not an idiot, Claire chooses flight in her fight or flight response, and runs out the back door, only to promptly get shot by Leon. Wait, that can't be right. Let me look over my script here. I'm not actually looking over shit. I'm just dragging this bit out, to be honest. Well, let's head over to the B scenario. Okay, that didn't actually happen. Instead, she ducks, and he saves her ass from near deathliness, I guess. They hop into a cop car and are able to make proper introductions of themselves. Apparently, it's Leon's first day on the job, which is some shit luck if you ask me. And for Claire, she's searching for her brother on today of all days, which is also some shit luck if you ask me. Sadly, the romantic drive is interrupted by a zombie that was chilling in the back of the car for some reason. They decide to smack the car into a pole, which torpedoes the now dead guy. And you would think that was the end of their problems for the moment. But it's actually just the start of them, as a semi-truck with a poor guy trying to make quota races towards them. They escape before it slams into them, but are now split up, with no possible way of reconnecting at the moment. They then agree to meet at the RPD, which is the Raccoon City Police Department, if you didn't know that already. And as I'm sure you just saw, this game's cutscenes are no longer live action like the first one. Gone are the days of using real actors for their cutscenes, and in its stead are these pretty detailed animations. I personally like these a lot, even now with the game closing in on its 30th year of release. While the cheesy FMVs are gone, we still thankfully have the cheesy voice acting, but it's nowhere near as cheesy as the first games. but I'll discuss both the voice acting and the cutscenes near the end of the video. So let's get back to what Claire is up to, shall we? On her way towards the RPD, Claire, in a once-in-a-lifetime chance of good luck, enters a gun store in the midst of a zombie apocalypse. She is greeted by yet another gun pointed right at her, but this time it's by Robert Kendo, the owner and gunsmith who created the handguns held by the STARS unit in the first game. He locks the door behind her, even though there's a big-ass window right next to it, and claims that she will be safe here. But not even 5 seconds later, a group of zombies burst in and kill poor Kendo. Claire takes his bowgun, which is a hell of a choice of a weapon to use, and makes her way out the back. So far, as I'm sure you've seen, the game is a lot grander in scope compared to Resident Evil 1. Instead of being trapped in a mansion the whole game, you start off in the streets of Raccoon City. Granted, you will be stuck inside the RPD for the majority of the experience. It's a nice change of pace to walk through the town before it happens. Another thing of note is that there's a lot more zombies on screen at a time. Instead of cramped halls of 1 or 2 undead foes, Resident Evil 2 can now throw 5 to 7 at a time. And more enemies means more supplies, as the game gives you a lot more ammo and healing items to deal with the threats it throws at you. While traveling through the town, the movement of the character is pretty much the same as the first game, with it using tank controls. These controls were everywhere in survival horror games around the time, and to be honest, I quite like them. But I can also see where people take issue with it, as it can feel clunky when you first use them. However, I do find that the movement is a bit smoother overall. I don't know if it's just me when it comes to that or not, so take that with a grain of salt. A new addition to the game required me to purposely let Claire take some damage to show it. The addition is a change in your character's animation to signify how much damage they have taken. Instead of it being a guessing game like the first Resident Evil, this shows your character holding their side to let you know they aren't in perfect health. If you lose more health and are near death, then your character will slow down to a near crawl. This is a great and necessary addition to the series as a whole, as it allows you to gauge how much health your character has without having to spam your inventory screen. Thankfully, this will be a permanent addition to Resident Evil moving forward. Oh look, Claire made it to the RPD. Once inside, Claire comes across an injured police officer named Marvin Branagh. He tells her that they lost contact with not only her brother, but the rest of the STARS unit. He then goes over what happened at the mansion, and everything that led up to this point, but we can skip through that because we know that shit already. And if you don't, then here's a shameless plug to my video about it. He then hands her a key card that will give her access to more parts of the building, and holy shit, dude! No need to point a gun at her just because she won't leave your side. Well, Claire promises to come back to help him for some reason, but he locks the door behind her. Welp, so much for that idea, Claire. During her travels throughout the station, she finds that during the initial outbreak, the police attempted to rescue as many people as possible and bring them to the station. This plan worked for a time, but quickly ended up biting them in the ass, as some people they rescued were infected and turned into zombies inside the station, thus leading it to the state she finds it in now. She also learns that the police chief, Brian Irons, weirdly moved the police department's armaments the day before the outbreak. Now that is not some sort of coincidence. Another highlight of Resident Evil 2 is something called the Licker. And no, it's not as sexy as it sounds. I mean, just look at this fucking thing. This creature is completely blind and relies on sound to find its prey. But don't let this fool you. These things are extremely dangerous because of their sharp claws and tongue attack, which is still not sexy. Another aspect to this game, as I'm sure you've noticed by now, is that it uses fixed camera angles. This is something that will be a feature for the series for quite some time, and to some, is the preferred camera setting for the series. Others, however, can't stand it, because it can change the directional controls on a dime, and has the added benefit of hiding enemies off screen where you can't see them, until it's possibly too late. I personally like both settings, as I can see each side of the argument. They both add and subtract certain things from the games they are in. The plus side for fixed camera angles is that they do hide things off screen, which gives you an uneasy feeling whenever you walk around a corner, and don't know what could be standing there. Could it be a zombie? A licker? Or absolutely nothing at all? But, like I said a bit ago, the downside is the sudden control change, which can be jarring for first-time players. Although, you will quickly figure out how it works and adapt to it. I obviously won't be talking about the other camera settings in the series, as we haven't gotten to that point just yet. So, without dragging this out any further, let's get back to the action. Claire eventually makes it to the second floor of the RPD, which houses the STAR's office. The room, though, is lifeless, but she does come across her brother's diary. Inside, it says that the police chief refused to listen to anything he or the rest of the STAR's members had to say about the mansion incident, and that no one in town was willing to listen, because Umbrella pretty much has control of it. The last entry shows he, Jill, and Barry discovered that Umbrella has already started research on a new strain of the T-virus, called the ever-so-creative G-virus, and that they flew out to Umbrella's main headquarters in Europe. Beyond that, there are two things she grabs in the office. The first is the grenade launcher, because why not? And the second is a unicorn medal, which will be used shortly. When Claire is about to leave the office, a fax meant for Chris is printed right near her. Apparently, Chris requested the United States Federal Police Department to also investigate Umbrella. The section chief, Jack Hamilton, says they can't confirm if the G-virus exists or not, but do know that Brian Irons has been bribed by Umbrella for the past 5 years, which is the reason why he was never willing to talk with the STAR's members about it, as he was helping cover up the mansion incident. Sadly, the fax goes even further, and says that Brian Irons was arrested under suspicion of, well, let's just say SA, on 2 separate accounts. So now we know that 1, he moved the station's weapons on purpose because he likely knew the outbreak was starting, 2, he's in Umbrella's pocket, and 3, is absolutely a garbage person. Let's just hope he didn't make it this far. Claire then takes the unicorn medal and places it in a slot on the statue of the maiden in the RPD's main hall. This causes the statue to move and drop the spade key out of its urn. Now, I know what you might be thinking, and I'm thinking about it as well. Why the hell does the police station have puzzles like this? And how are people supposed to get around the damn place before the outbreak? There are 2 possible answers for this, and a canon one that's only in the remake, which I won't spoil. The first possible answer is because Brian Irons and Umbrella wanted to hide shit, because they're both insane. Or the second possible answer, and the most likely one, is that it's a video game, and I need to shut up. So pick which one best suits your narrative here. Anyway, Claire backtracks all the way back to the STAR's office, and comes across a little girl being chased by a zombie. She asks for help, but decides to just run away and slip through an open vent. Claire uses the spade key to get into the room the girl crawled in, only to see Leon wandering around aimlessly as well. Claire states the obvious about it being too dangerous for a little girl to be here, which I agree with, but let's be honest, it's even dangerous for their asses as well. They then make the horror movie decision of splitting up, with Claire continuing to look for the girl, and Leon finding them a way out of Raccoon City. Oh, and he gives her a radio so they can keep in touch. So now Claire embarks on an epic quest that spans pretty much the whole entire station. This resulted in her getting plastic explosives, the diamond key, and a bunch of stones with various animals on them. except one of the stones is broken in half, which we'll deal with a bit later. Sadly, while grabbing the detonator for the aforementioned plastic explosive, poor Marvin turned purple and had to be put out of his misery. Rest in peace, you beautiful son of a bitch. The whole reason Claire needs the explosives is because a helicopter smashed into a wall and is blocking her progress. How did it get there? Well, you'll find out way later. After hearing a stock sound effect of a woman screaming, she places the explosives and blows open the wall leading to Chief Iron's office. Inside, we find the source of the screams, as a poor woman lies dead on a desk. Claire moonwalks closer to the chair behind it, only for Chief Irons to spin around and point a gun right at her. Why do all the shitty people live the longest? The reports may have painted him in a creepy light, but he's somehow even worse, as he nonchalantly points out that the dead woman on his desk is the mayor's daughter, which he had nothing to do with. He asks to be left alone as if he was mourning her, but in actuality, he has some weird taxidermy fetish thing going on with her, which we don't want to be around to see when it happens. So let's just leave. On the topic of taxidermy, Chief Irons has a whole room dedicated to the poor animals he's done it to. And hiding in the corner of a dark room is the girl Claire saw earlier. Her name is Sherry, and both her parents work at Umbrella's chemical plant. The reason she is here and not at home is because her mom had her head over to the RPD, because it was too dangerous to be home. Which is one hell of a coincidence if you ask me. When told she would be safer by Claire's side, she reveals that something bigger and more dangerous than a zombie is out there chasing her. Suddenly, a roar from said creature is heard, which prompts Sherry to run off yet again. God damn it. Well, I guess she chose a good time to do it, because Chief Irons isn't in his office anymore. Nor is the mayor's daughter. So I can only imagine what went on in those 5 minutes before Claire came back in the room. On Irons' desk lies his diary. In it lies his confessions with working with Umbrella, and pretty much sabotaging all escape routes out of the city so no one could escape. Jesus. We thought he was bad and insane before, but now he tops the shithead list, and is a complete psychopath. And even worse, he had a change of heart during the whole zombie apocalypse thing. And not in the, "aw, he admits he was wrong" kind of way. But instead, decided to hunt everyone left in the building down and kill them. It's almost like we should do something about him. But I guess Claire has other plans, like flipping some switches in the basement to power up a door. Suddenly, a thought pops into Claire's head, saying, you know what? Why don't we go further down? And so, she does, inside some weird sewer construction area. But not before being chased by some fucking dogs. I guess Claire's instincts serve her well, because this is where Sherry went too. Why? Hell if I know, to be honest. Claire tries her best not to do the whole stranger danger shtick, but let's be honest. If I were Sherry, I wouldn't go with her either, as the last time they met, Claire kinda grabbed her arm and held onto it pretty forcefully. Okay, she does trust Claire. It's just that her father called for her from beyond that small hole in the fence. Naturally, she doesn't listen to Claire and slips on through. This is when we are forced to play as Sherry. Beyond having to run past some damn dogs, we are forced to partake in the Resident Evil tradition of a box-moving puzzle. Since Sherry is jacked, this isn't a problem for her, and she obtains the club key for Claire. She also finds some grenades for her as well, sitting in some random-ass room. She throws the key through the hole and... Wait, Sherry! Don't throw those grenades! Sherry tells Claire she is unable to get back to her and will find another way. And thank fuck too, because we get control of Claire once again. With the newly acquired key, she is able to enter the morgue, which is a shitty bit of bad luck if you ask me. But the zombies in the room are about to play a huge prank on her. They all agreed not to move until she grabs a key card at the end of the room. And once she does, they pop out of the freezers and all stand up to attack her. Got her! Said key card actually leads into the armory, which gives you one of the major choices in the zapping mechanic. There is a submachine gun and a side pack to increase a character's inventory. This choice allows you to either take one of the items, both of them, or leave them for Leon in the B scenario. I absolutely love this choice, and decide to only take the machine gun since Claire's bow gun is kinda shit. You'll thank me later, Leon. Claire then takes the club key and has a long ass walk to the press room, which is back on the first floor of the RPD. In here is yet another questionable puzzle placed inside a police station. Claire needs to light a furnace with her lighter, and then must light these 3 lamps in the right order. Once done correctly, a cog falls off a painting on a nearby wall. With cog in hand, she now heads to the 3rd floor and inserts it into a mechanism, which opens up a metal door. Inside it is the other half of one of those animal stones she got earlier. With it pieced together, she now heads back to Chief Irons' creepy-ass office. And waiting inside is Sherry, who now tags along for the ride. The 3 stones are inserted in the wall behind Irons' desk, which opens up a secret door. On the floor inside the newly discovered room are a bunch of papers from someone named William Birkin. It goes over the mansion incident and tasks Iron with getting rid of the STARS members in accidental circumstances. The reasoning is because William is close to completing the G-Virus, and the STARS members are still attempting to uncover more information about Umbrella and the virus itself. But that isn't the only issue William is experiencing, as he has been informed that Umbrella has sent spies to steal his research. So he also tasks Irons with finding and killing said spies, and that his contact is someone named Annette. Umbrella and its employees are quite the backstabbing bunch here, which isn't surprising as we have witnessed a lot of it from both Wesker from Resident Evil 1 and Brian Irons in this. Besides the bunch of papers is an elevator that only goes down. Claire once again has perfect instincts here and tells Sherry to wait until she comes back. Down below, Claire hears Iron screaming out for help because he just got impregnated by some sort of monster. Could I have said that better? Probably, but let's keep going. She reaches Irons, who weirdly got over being filled up by a monster 5 seconds ago, and she oddly tries to reason with this psychopath, who is pointing a gun right at her, but is obviously unable to. However, he's evil, so he must monologue for a bit before shooting her. During this monologue, he explains that the G-Virus can turn anyone into bioweapons, and that William Birkin is behind its creation, which we already know thanks to him not keeping a filing cabinet. He keeps monologuing and says that Sherry is William's daughter, and that the monster that impregnated him is a bioweapon created by the G-Virus. Suddenly, the baby? Monster baby? Boss baby? Hold on, let me look this up. Ah, parasite. Suddenly, the parasite pops out of Irons, which kills him in a brutal but deserving fashion.
Are you alright?
Claire then takes the ladder that's near Irons' body down, and discovers the parasite growing right before her eyes. This fight is really annoying, as it constantly spews out its own parasites which latch onto Claire. They not only drain her health, which is annoying, but they also stun her from attacking for a short time, which is the most annoying aspect. But if you spam your grenade launcher without doing anything else, then you'll come out on top. Claire then continues forward because I completely forgot about Sherry for a second, so she has to go all the way back up, and is then hugged by Sherry, who thanks her for not ditching her. Yeah, you're welcome, Sherry. Claire calls Leon to tell him that they found a way out in the sewers, and to follow them. Leon tries to tell them to wait, but Claire doesn't give a shit for some reason, and hangs up on him. Poor Leon. Inside the sewers, they get a glimpse at the monster that's been skulking around. They make a run for it, and by run for it, I mean they go through just one door. Now, you'd think that this is going to turn into one of those god-awful PS1 escort missions, but the game saves us from it by dragging Sherry into another section of the sewer. We don't get away that easy though, as we now have to play as Sherry once again. The section is pretty short though, as she only has to dodge one zombie and a nest of giant cockroaches, which prove more of an adversary than the zombie does. Past the nest, Sherry finds a medal with a wolf on it. But this sets off its trap card, as the floor below her opens up and she falls, hitting the ground pretty damn hard. This is also where the monster is at, which can't be good. Now Claire must be the one to save the day, which involves her running around these maze-like sewers. Yay! Who doesn't love a good sewer level in a video game? Even by 1998 standards, these levels were already overused and dull. The sad part is, that sewer levels are here to stay. Not just for Resident Evil, but video games as a whole. Which is questionable, because if you pretty much ask anybody about sewer levels, you'll pretty much get the same answer. Which is that they are terrible, and need to stop being shoved into every damn video game. Okay, small rant over. For now. Beyond the typical zombie encounter, there are also some giant-ass spiders here as well, which are an arachnophobe's nightmare. So let's just blur these out a bit and there we go. One thing of note are a couple of heavily armed bodies cornered in a small section of the sewer. Just who exactly are these guys? And why are they here? No time to think on this though, as we are now in yet another scenario where a gun is pointed at Claire's face. The woman with the gun thinks Claire is a spy. Lady, I don't think what Claire is wearing fits the criteria for a spy. But you do you. This highly intelligent woman is Annette, the wife of William Birkin. Claire tells the Mother of the Year that Sherry is wandering around the sewers, and Annette informs her that William will be looking for her. Not a bad thing, right? I mean, a father should be looking for his daughter that's in danger. Except there's one tiny detail I did not mention. The creature that's been terrorizing everyone is actually William. How this came to be is quite the story. Umbrella sent a task force to steal the G-Virus right out from under William. After William creepily talks to the G-Virus like it's his own child, they swoop in and hold him at gunpoint. Shit then hits the fan when a small item hits the floor and causes one of the Umbrella squad members to open fire on poor old William. They made a major mistake here by not finishing the job though, which allowed William to inject himself with the G-Virus, turning him into the mutated monster he is now. He then went on a warpath, killing all of the Umbrella squad members. Well, except one, but we'll get to that. The briefcase that held the G-Virus was also destroyed, and the virus itself leaked out, which was soon consumed by rats. This is what led to the Raccoon City outbreak, as the rats spread the virus like wildfire. Annette explains that any G-Virus bioweapon can implant embryos into other life forms, and William is searching for Sherry for exactly that purpose. The two then hear Sherry scream and split up to search for her. Due to lack of foresight on my end, I had to walk all the way back to the save room just to grab a damn valve to lower a nearby bridge. This should have been known by me since I've played this before, but how could a new player anticipate this? It's kind of irritating to have to walk a long ass distance just to grab an item you'd have no business of clinging onto at this point in the game. Now, I get that backtracking is kind of a thing that Resident Evil has you do, but this one was kind of a slog to deal with. Anyway, that's enough bitching for now. Over the bridge and through the tunnels, Claire finds Sherry lying in a heap of trash. If you're not blind, then you can clearly see a giant-ass alligator sitting in the sewer water by her. This is the next boss, if you can even call it that. As all you have to do is run back and release a gas tank that's been conveniently placed on a wall in the alligator's way. Then, You just wait for it to grab the tank with its mouth and fire one round into it, instantly killing the poor gator that was just minding its own damn business. Don't mind Claire moonwalking on its corpse. With that obstacle out of the way, Claire heads over to Sherry and gets her to wake up. But not before a parasite left over by William slithers away. Sherry complains about a stomach ache, but Dr. Claire tells her it's nothing to worry about, as it's probably IBS or something. We grab the wolf medal that was by Sherry, and the eagle medal sitting by a dead sewer maintenance worker. These two then go into slots that unlock a door leading to a tram. Sadly, it's not as exciting as the one at Universal Studios. Family. And instead, it leads to a factory on the outskirts of Raccoon City. Oh, and we now have to escort Sherry, which can be extremely annoying because she decides to sit in place and refuses to move if you're more than 6 feet away from her. Just look at this shit! But after we activate a train turntable, the escort mission ends just as it was starting. Thank fuck. While the turntable descends, Sherry's condition worsens, as it's clearly not IBS, and instead is the embryo about to pupate. Claire's words, not mine, as I probably would have said hatched, which is clearly wrong here. Things then go from bad to worse as a giant slam? Thunk? Whatever. Something big just dropped on top of the train car. And to no one's surprise, it's William. Jesus, dude, you could have hit Claire with that. Unfortunately for William, the G-Virus evolution is not on his side here, as he quickly morphs into his own chest as the parasite takes control, and it even grows its own head, which is pretty neat. What isn't neat, however, is the creature wanting to kill us, so Claire must fight back. And I don't know if I'm the only one here, but I do want to know the brand of jeans poor old William is wearing, as they can take a damn beating and still be in that good a shape. While the fight goes on, I also wonder if William just wore jeans around while making a deadly virus. I mean, who said you had to be formal while making deadly things? In my headcanon, William had the workforce around him dressed casual all week long. I know you're probably sitting there wondering, why the hell is this idiot talking about this shit in a Resident Evil video? And I'm wondering about that myself. But the only answer could be is that I'm slowly losing my sanity while I'm sitting here writing this script. Oh look, Claire won the fight. She grabs a now unconscious Sherry and takes her to a nearby security room that for some reason has a single bed in it. Claire wraps Sherry in her jacket, and right when she's about to leave, Sherry wakes up and then starts to overshare her sob story about her shitty parents. That's when Claire vows to come back to her with the antidote, which is one hell of a promise that I wouldn't make for anybody. Also, let's hope it goes over better than your vow to return to poor old Marvin. A quick side note, while taking Sherry to the security room, William's body disappeared, obviously signaling that he'll be back later, which is just great. Past some lab doors leads to the heart of Umbrella's underground facility. This place came to be because of Chief Irons being bribed by them, thus allowing them to construct this big-ass facility right under the city. Most of the place is locked down and requires Claire to create a fuse, and then inserting it into the power core in the center of the lab. With the power now on, the shutters blocking most of the facility are opened, and behind them are once again hentai tentacle creatures. There's only one way to deal with these things. And no, not in that way. We burn them alive. Claire then takes a ladder down to the 5th floor of the facility, and here, she grabs a key card needed to access even more rooms of the lab, because security in this series is no joke. Like clockwork though, Claire finds herself being held at gunpoint by Annette. What is this? The 3rd time a gun's been pointed right at her face? 4th if we count Leon at the start. At least people in the RE universe practice safe gun control. Annette is going apeshit over the last G-Virus sample she has in her hand, vowing that no one will take it from her. I guess this idiot still believes Claire is a spy, so there's no helping her on that front. Claire then tells her that Sherry has been infected and needs help, but I guess Annette has better shit to do, because she runs off towards William, who, let's be honest here, has a pulsing asshole on his chest. Not a good look for you, my man. In a string of bad decisions made by Annette, this one would be her last, as the Burkinator attacks her. Before helping the idiot, Claire registers her fingerprint to the staff registry. Why? Well, that answer will come way later. So, let's get back to Annette, who is bleeding out as we speak. She tells Claire that William is quickly evolving and becoming more powerful by the minute. And as a last-ditch effort to be a good parent, she hands Claire information on how to synthesize a vaccine for Sherry. Before shifting off her mortal coil, she asks Claire to tell Sherry that she is sorry for being a bad parent. And within 5 seconds of her death, the self-destruct sequence that has to be in every Resident Evil game activates. Midway through her long walk back to the main parts of the lab, Claire sees Leon on a monitor. She tells him to go get Sherry while she ties up loose ends and refuses to elaborate any further for our poor friend Leon. My dude is just flailing around in the dark. Speaking of flailing, I was doing just that when I had to go all the way back up to the main lab for the base vaccine, and then come all the way back down to where we got the damn keycard to produce the full vaccine. These backtracking sections kill me on the inside. With vaccine in hand, Claire must go through the cargo room to reach her escape, which is a train headed towards the outskirts of Raccoon City. But, this being a Resident Evil game, we have to fight a boss one last time, and under the pressure of a 5-minute timer. William has once again transformed into a toothy 4-armed Goliath. But after a constant stream of acid rounds from the grenade launcher, he transforms yet again, this time into a quadrupedal creature that is extremely agile. Halfway through the timer, Claire emerges victorious and makes it to the train that's already on its way out. Thanks a lot, Leon. She hops on board and gives the antidote to Sherry, who quickly awakens from her sleep or coma or whatever the fuck it was. They then have firm dick shakes all around, and that is the end of the Claire A scenario. I know, kinda anticlimactic. Well, the full ending is in the B scenario, which we'll shift over to now. Leon's story begins just like Claire's, with him arriving to Raccoon City, only to find a corpse in the middle of the road.
What have we got here?
After spending some time sticking his fingers in it, he finds himself surrounded by zombies. And since it's the 90s, he has no idea how to dispatch these things, and wastes all his ammo on body shots. But thankfully, he saved one round for Claire. Same joke in the same video? Yep, I'm getting lazy here. Let's fast forward past them getting to know each other, and get right to the spot where they split up. Here is another great showcase of the zapping mechanic. Since Claire ended up on the side of Kendo's gun shop in the A scenario, Leon is pretty much placed on the side closest to the Raccoon City Police Department. When I first played this, I was actually extremely surprised and couldn't be happier, as it added so much more replay value to the game. And like I said at the start of the video, Leon and Claire both have A and B scenarios, which also blew my mind as a child. Upon entering the grounds of the RPD, Leon sees he's in the back of the building, which is the parking lot. This forces him to take the side entrance where Claire saw the destroyed helicopter. And speaking of helicopter, you know how I said you'd find out how it ended up in the RPD building? Well, here is the answer. Some poor son of a bitch was waiting to be picked up, but ended up being swarmed by zombies, which led him to accidentally shooting the pilot, and then having the helicopter crash right on top of him. Truly one of the unluckiest people in all of Raccoon City, and that is saying something. Since Leon needs to put out the fire, he grabs the valve in the east offices of the station, and uses it on the pressure valve below the water tower, to get it to leak water on top of the helicopter to extinguish the flames. Now here is where Resident Evil 2 gets serious. I left this out of the introduction entirely for this reason. The A scenario is a cakewalk compared to the B one because right at the start, Umbrella releases something from a capsule on top of the RPD that will be an issue for the foreseeable future. What did they release exactly? Well, it's what the Resident Evil community refers to as Mr. X. The real name is Tyrant 00, or T00 for short. This is a creature designed just like the one in the mansion incident. The difference in appearance can be misleading though, but I assure you that they are the same. The trench coat he is wearing isn't just for looks either. It's actually something called a power limiter, and it's used to stop the Tyrant from evolving. And just like the first Tyrant in the first game, it's not something that can be reasoned with. So you will be forced to either flee or fight the thing on the spot. This beefy boy is an ammo sponge, but he can be defeated. And when I say defeated, I mean just that, and not killed. Because as soon as you leave the room, his invincible ass is getting right back up. However, there are rewards for defeating him, so it's not just a waste of your time. The first reward is the obvious one. He falls to the floor and stays there for a while, which gives you some breathing room to scout out for items or to just progress further in the story. The second reward, which will be the main reason why you want to defeat him, is that he drops a decent amount of ammo that can help in the long run, especially when it comes to getting more shotgun or magnum ammo. So it really is up to you if you either want to just run past and avoid Mr. X, or gun him down every chance you get. With Leon now being able to breathe for the moment, he heads to the main hall of the RPD, and this is where he finds the shotgun, which is a unique weapon to him, like Claire with her grenade launcher. Let's just forget about the bowgun. This is yet another aspect to this game that I love. Each character feels unique, as they are given a set of weapons that only they can find. Claire gets the grenade launcher and the spark shotgun, and Leon gets the shotgun and magnum, with both of them having a surprise later on, which I'll get to. There are more unique guns for each of them, but that's just covering the basics here. Speaking of the aforementioned magnum, Leon picks it up in the STAR's office, and right down the hall from there, he runs into Sherry. Here is where we see the zapping system doesn't change major story segments, as the B scenario doesn't really get affected that much from the A scenario. An example of this actually just happened. In the A scenario, Claire ran into Sherry, but here, Leon ran into her instead. Overall, there are only 9 things that can change due to the zapping system. It's not a huge list, but it's still something that made each playthrough feel unique. Though I can definitely understand people who don't like the system, with the main issue being that Mr. X is locked to the B scenarios only. This can make the A scenario feel a bit easy and slow, but that's just my takeaway from it. While Sherry was making her great escape, she dropped the diamond key, which will give Leon access to more rooms in the RPD. Claire has apparently been following her, and the two go with the same plan they had in the first scenario, that being Claire finding Sherry and Leon finding them a way out. A concrete plan that clearly worked. Taking the place of the animal stones that Claire uses in Brian Iron's office are these plugs with chess piece designs. The bishop in the library where Claire got the serpent stone, the king in the storage room where Claire got half of the jaguar stone, the rook in the interrogation room where Claire got the eagle stone, and finally the knight in the cog room where Claire got the other half of the jaguar. But before he can get that one, Leon must get the cog from the press room, which he doesn't have a key for. The search for said key leads to him getting all the other suit key besides the one that he needs in that room. So, he finds himself in the RPD parking garage, where he is almost shot by a woman in a red dress. She gives a half-baked apology and introduces herself as Ada Wong. 2 fun facts here. The first being that Ada is the name used for the computer password in the labs in Resident Evil 1, which isn't a coincidence, by the way. And the other is Ada's name spelled backwards is Ada. She says she is looking for someone named Ben, but is unable to reach them because a vehicle blocks the door to the cell block. And yes, Ben is also in a cell for some reason. The two muster the strength to move a giant-ass police truck, and are able to reach Ben. Well, reach his cell door to be exact. Leon decides to play bad cop towards Ben for some reason, while Ada asks him for information because she is searching for her boyfriend, John. This is when we learn that he locked himself in there because he is being stalked by a monster. And like clockwork, the trio hear it yell from a distance. Ben then points towards the sewers as a possible escape from the city, but doesn't tag along because reasons. Can't say I blame him though, because it's a fucking sewer. Once down there, Leon is finally able to introduce himself to Ada. No shit, Leon. You literally have it stamped on your clothes. Ada then asks for a boost to reach a nearby ventilation duct, and on the other side is none other than Sherry, who must have holes in her pockets because she drops yet another item. This one being her locket, and inside is a picture of her and her shitty parents. We now control Ada in the same spot we had to control Sherry for Claire. The plus side to this one is that we can actually fight back. Since it's the same spot, that means we have to do yet another box moving puzzle. Ada grabs the club key and throws it over to Leon and tells him that she will catch up to him later. Leon tries to tell her to stop, but just like every other time he tries that, be it Ada or Claire, they don't listen, which leaves Leon alone yet again. Poor guy. On his way to the press room, he grabs the fanny pack that Claire left for him, which adds a sweet 2 slots to his inventory. With him now in the press room, all he needs to do is light the statues in the correct order to release the cog. A simple task, really. Nothing could possibly go wrong here.
Oh yeah!
He downs Mr. X yet again and grabs the cog. Nothing but smooth sailing from here on.
Oh yeah!
God damn it. Leon inserts the cog into the mechanism, which opens up a metal door nearby, revealing the night plug and a dust chute leading down to the cells of the RPD. At least they were nice enough to add this, so we didn't have to backtrack all the way down there. When he lands, Leon hears Ben scream out, because his foolproof plan of staying locked in a jail cell apparently failed, and William managed to get inside with him. So I guess Ben didn't drown, and was instead slashed to death by a mutated scientist. If you spent even a sliver of your time on the internet, then you understand that reference I just made. He then hands Leon the evidence that details the mansion incident, and the police chief's involvement with Umbrella. He was even nice enough to not get any blood on the papers, which was a sweet thing to do. Ada then decides to show up out of the blue before Ben shuffles off his mortal coil. With Leon's luck with women being the way that it is, Ada decides to run off once again without saying a word, leaving him all alone. Cue Claire radioing in to let him know they found a way out in the sewers. And like clockwork, Claire leaves Leon hanging even with him shouting out to her. This poor soul.
Man, why doesn't anyone ever listen to me?
At least he's aware of it. With the 4 chest plugs now in his possession, Leon heads to the septic pool walkway, where said plugs can be inserted into a panel. Since this is Resident Evil we're talking about, this isn't that simple, as William Birkin stands in his way and mutates before his very eyes. Speaking of eyes, the Birkinator gets a brand new one in his shoulder. The jeans-sporting Birkin has his eyes set on Leon and slowly walks towards him with malicious intent. With there being almost no wiggle room in here, William lays some mad pipe on Leon. Which I could have worded a lot better, but what do you really expect from me at this point? Thankfully, the Magnum works like a charm, and ends the fight in 30 seconds, with William plunging further down into the sewer system. A piece of shit hanging around with other pieces of shit. Truly deserving if you ask me. Leon inserts the chest plugs into a panel, and goes through the door, finding none other than Ada, who apparently had a better route here than he did. Leon then grills into her for running off with everything going on, as he clearly hasn't come to grips that she is capable of taking care of herself. Though she reluctantly agrees to pair up for what's up ahead. And what's up ahead is a long stretch of sewer, which I don't think Ada has the footwear to trek through all this shit water without getting it on her skin. But hey, I'll let her do her thing. The two eventually run right into Annette, who is staring blankly at a wall for some reason. But as soon as she locks eyes on Leon and Ada, she makes a run for it. Ada blindly charges after her, which almost gets her shot. But thankfully, good old Leon is here to take the bullet for her. Ada thanks him for this by leaving his poor ass bleeding in the hall while she goes after Annette. While we're in the sewers for the second time, I thought now would be the perfect moment to talk about the scenery. That of course being the pre-rendered backgrounds the game uses. The way this works is that the characters, enemies, and item placements all exist in a blank space. The game designers would then create a 3D space and take snapshots of those. Then, they would place these now 2D images in the boundaries which the characters occupy. And when the fixed camera changes, the space which they walk in and the image change alongside with it. The reason why they did this was to work around limitations set by the hardware at the time. And as you can see, they hold up quite well today, especially compared to games that didn't use this method that were released around the same time. Obviously, once hardware limitations weren't so much of a problem, this method faded alongside with them. But there will still occasionally be a new game that pops up using this method. I am not doing the explanation of these backgrounds justice here, to be quite honest. And I'm confident that there are a ton of videos on here that go more in depth. So if you're interested, I'd definitely look those up. Okay, back to the story. When Ada catches up to her, Annette proves that she isn't just a virologist, but also a sharpshooter, as she manages to shoot Ada's gun right out of her hand. We once again come across a villain who monologues, but the first few seconds I can't even hear, because her footsteps and the music are loud as shit.
Don't move. You're the one who was with that cop, if I'm not mistaken. Identify yourself.
When Ada identifies herself, Annette seemingly proves that she is a decent employer, as she remembers John and his use of Ada as his password. She continues to do the evil monologue thing about the G-Virus and William, only to finally notice Sherry's pendant around Ada's neck. This is when Ada strikes and goes for the gun. The two fight over it for a bit, but Ada comes out victorious by bitch slapping Annette over the rail. With some time to breathe, Ada opens the locket to discover a vial hidden beneath the picture of the Birkin family. What does Ada do afterwards? Well, she continues onward, while Leon still bleeds out. Speaking of Leon, he manages to wake up from his sudden bullet sickness and goes after Ada. When he reaches her, that's when he decides to break down from the bullet hole in him, and the likely chance of sewer water splashing up on it. She patches him up and brings him up to speed on her relationship status. Our buddy Leon may still have a shot here. The two pair up once again, and insert the wolf and eagle medal to gain access to the cable car. This is where they can have a nice romantic ride together, and let each other know how they feel. But, like before, this is Resident Evil, so they don't get that chance. Instead, the Birkinator slashes through the roof, in a scene that pretty much mirrors that one out of Terminator 2. After that peaceful cable car ride, the two head through a hallway leading to the turntable yard. Here is where Leon gets weapon parts for his shotgun. Unlike Claire, who gets different rounds for her grenade launcher and the spark shot, Leon gets weapon parts for his pistol, the shotgun, and the magnum. The pistol parts give it a stock, and allows Leon's VP-70 to switch between single and burst fire modes. This actually is a real customization that Heckler & Koch produced in the real-world military VP-70, and it allowed the handgun to switch firing modes just like it does in the game. The shotgun that Leon has, the Remington M1100, also gets real-world attachments, with the long barrel and stock extension. While it isn't something as simple as slapping a stock on the VP-70, these are things you can have on your Remington M1100. But let's also not forget about the Desert Eagle, a pistol so renowned for its power, it's been in countless games and always hits like a truck. This too gets real-world parts, with a slide and long barrel upgrade. This makes an already powerful weapon into a broken one. These upgrades make me personally enjoy Leon's weapons more than Claire's. While I do love the grenade launcher, nothing beats popping off multiple zombie heads with a single shotgun blast, or dropping a boss with a few magnum rounds. Alright, I went off topic enough. Let's finish this story out. Ada stays behind in the control room because she assumes something is hidden there, and Leon heads to the hydraulic monitor room to grab a key needed to activate the turntable. However, before he can turn back, Leon sees he has a visitor on a nearby monitor. It is once again Mr. X, and he is coming from the only way out of the area. Leon guns his stalker ass down and heads back to Ada, who just so happened to miss out on the action. They then insert the key into the turntable control panel and then hop into the train on the turntable itself. While headed down towards the Umbrella Labs, Ada gets slashed from William through the wall, knocking her unconscious. Leon rushes out of the train to see that William has transformed into his pulsing chest asshole form. Leon damages him enough to force the asshole into a tactical retreat.
Fuck you.
Once back inside the train car, the elevator decides now is the best time to overheat, which forces it to stop midway through the trip down. Leon places Ada on a nearby bench and vows to return to her with medical aid. But Ada tells him to just leave her here and to save himself, which I would probably do. But he isn't having it though, as the two clearly have a thing for one another. Which, to be honest, is kind of crazy, being that they've only known each other for at most a few hours. Now, I'm all for finding love in obscure places, but let's be honest with ourselves here, my fellow Resident Evil fans. We all want Leon to fulfill Chris's wish of continuing the Redfield bloodline,
Help me out
if
here.
you catch my drift.
Not inside.
Leon crawls through a nearby vent only to fall through it shortly after. And to add insult to injury, the elevator starts back up and continues its descent towards the labs. Leon takes a nearby door and finds himself in some sort of steam room, and after taking a short-lived trip down, he finds a body with a bunch of papers by it. In them lies a report on the P-Epsilon gas, but let's call it Pepsilon gas for shits and giggles. Apparently, this stuff is capable of incapacitating bioorganic weapons, or BOWs for short. However, there are some issues with it. Some species of BOWs can absorb it for nutrients, while others that have prolonged exposure to it allow them to adapt to the gas, rendering it completely useless. Good to know for future references, I guess. Down another elevator is the smelting room, which has a switch to power up the elevator back where he fell through the vents. The switch is flipped, and he takes the elevator down to the same area where the turntable elevator leads to. The problem is that there are no signs of Ada anywhere, so Leon heads further into the labs to search for her. Just like in Claire's scenario, he must also create a fuse to insert into the center of the lab to power it up. With that out of the way, he finds a keycard in the lab's sleeping quarters, along with a goddamn flamethrower, which is pretty much only useful for the plant BOWs roaming around. He then takes a ladder down to the 5th floor and grabs the P-room key sitting on a table. Naturally, this requires him to go all the way back to the steam room. But before heading there, you remember all the way back in the video where I brought up Claire registering her fingerprint in the lab system? Well, after Leon creates one for himself and verifies it on a nearby panel, a giant door opens leading to the culture room, where 3 liquors and an SMG await. This is my personal favorite instance of the zapping system. I love how it's something that can be completely missed in both scenarios, but as long as you remember to do it, you'll be rewarded with a unique room that has failed experiments inside. The gun is nice and all, but I love being able to see the different looks of the experiments, with the most notable being one looking a lot like the G-virus that William injected himself with. You might be asking yourself if there is any more point to this room besides the set dressing, and the answer is... nope. Alright, let's move on. Heading back towards the steam room, Leon runs into Annette, who isn't a fan of him putting bullet holes into her husband. During her whole angry wife rant, she brings up Ada, saying that she is a spy sent here from the agency to steal a sample of the G-virus, and her whole relationship with John was just to get closer to that sample. Leon refuses to believe this though, because he is too pure-hearted. But Annette doesn't give a shit if he does or not, because her monologue is now over, and she plans to shoot him to death. But luck is on his side, I think, because instead of him being shot, Mr. X falls through the ceiling, which prompts Annette to get the fuck out. Mr. X gets gunned down yet again, which at this point it's getting kind of sad. I mean, he came here to accomplish a job, and has been following Leon for what seems to be ages at this point, only to have him slip through his grasp every single time. Ah well. Now that we can finally enter the steam room again, we conclude that it's not just for steam. It's also for absolute nightmares. Those nightmares being a long-ass box-moving section. God, I hate these so much. With that tedious shit out of the way, Leon unlocks the nearby door with a P-room key. And somehow, Mr. X drops through yet another ceiling to meet him here. But this time, it's different, as Ada pops out of nowhere to divert his attention. This goes poorly for her though, as Mr. X grabs her by the neck and lifts her above him. She fills his face with lead, which leads to him violently throwing her against a nearby console. Mr. X, in a blind state, walks over towards the railing and falls over it into the lava below like a complete idiot. At least I can throw another Terminator 2 reference in here.
Because I'm a stud. I'm ballsy.
No, not that one, damn it. Leon tends to an even more injured Ada, who tells him once again to escape without her. But he refuses, and this is when she reveals that she is in love with him.
You have got to be kidding me!
That was quite quick, but oh, and now they're kissing.
Oh, for Christ's sakes!
Well, how sweet. Oh, and she's dead. Okay. Leon then gets his grieving interrupted by a Resident Evil classic, that being yet another self-destruct sequence. Leon grabs the master key that Ada dropped and heads to the security room to grab Sherry. But things can't go smoothly for the guy, as Mr. X somehow isn't dead yet and crawls out of the lava, which canonically makes him stronger than a T-1000 from Terminator. Why so many Terminator references in this video? I don't really know. Leon reaches the security room and grabs an unconscious Sherry, and with the master key in hand, he is able to take the elevator down to the gate platform where they can escape. Also, did anyone else notice that the screen in the elevator says Gorilla Stance for some reason? It's absolutely weird, and I love it. Alright, we're in the home stretch now. Leon places Sherry down inside the train and must turn on its power. This is a convoluted process that requires him to go all the way around the train, grab 2 joint plugs, head into another section of the train platform, and place the plugs inside the power control platform to restore power to the terminal. Suddenly, a now butt-naked and mutating Mr. X reveals himself in every sense of the word. Leon uses everything he has against him, but to no avail. But out of nowhere, a silhouette who is clearly Ada throws down a rocket launcher for him to use. And just like the first game, Leon picks it up and kills Mr. X with one rocket.
Game over.
All that's left to do is to open the tunnel and start the train. And this is where the two scenarios meet, with Claire hopping on a now moving train headed towards the outskirts of town. Claire administers the antidote to Sherry, and it's firm dick shakes all around.
Goodbye, Ada.
Not just yet, as there is one last hurdle they must go through before escaping this hellhole. While investigating the train cars, the doors lock behind Leon, and an announcement is made, saying that the train will detonate due to there being a biohazardous outbreak on it. It can't be Mr. X, as he's lying in pieces back at the terminal, so that means it could only be the Burkinator, who is no longer recognizable in his current form. Well, except for the asshole part, as I'm sure you can see. Besides that, he's just a giant lump of flesh with tendrils latching onto the train. And how he managed to latch onto a moving train is beyond me. But who really cares? We have a final boss to beat. Leon backs into the corner of the train and unloads everything he has into William. And right before William reaches him, he kills him, resulting in William deflating like a balloon. But he is still kicking, or in his case, crawling? Slithering? Well, whatever he's doing it. With the doors locked, Leon and Claire are barred off from each other, and they have no way of stopping the train. Thankfully, Sherry crawls through a small slot leading to the controls and hits the emergency brakes. The three get off the train and make a run towards the end of the tunnel before it explodes. It would be a pretty shit ending if they didn't make it, but that's not the case here. They escape, and poor William finally meets his end with the train blowing up. The three can now rest, and after Claire and Sherry say they both look like shit,
Sherry, you look terrible.
No worse than you, Claire.
Leon has just one last thing to say.
Now? What's wrong? Is something following us?
We have to go. We don't have any time to waste.
Go? Where?
Hey, it's up to us to take out Umbrella.
Aw, hell yeah. Love this cheesy ass rock credit scene. Oh, and that's the end of Resident Evil 2. At least the main story of it, that is. Before I talk about a few extra modes this game has to offer, as well as my feelings on the whole experience, I want to highlight the slight changes that occur if we choose the non-canon Leon A and Claire B scenarios. This will be quick as the story ends the exact same way. So here are the major changes throughout Leon's A scenario. At the start of the game, he is on the side of the tanker fire leading towards Kendo's gun shop, instead of the back of the RPD building. He is greeted the same way Claire was, and is able to get the shotgun as soon as Kendo is killed by the horde of zombies. Inside the RPD, he runs into a dying Marvin, who is distraught over Leon's party being cancelled.
Sorry, but it looks like your party has been canceled.
He reacts the same way when Leon protests about leaving him here, as he does with Claire, which is him pointing a gun right at his face. Amazing police work there, Marvin. And let's not forget the crucial Welcome Leon sign with the word welcome having 2 L's. When Leon reaches the STARS office, he's the one that comes across Chris's little diary. This results in a small cutscene where Claire walks in and he informs her that Chris is no longer in town. Funnily enough, you can also get a second shotgun from the weapons locker in this room, just in case if you missed picking it up from Kendo. In the sewers, where Leon has to use the 4 chest plugs, he faces off against the G Parasite instead of William Birkin, which the Parasite is the more annoying fight if you ask me. Playing as Ada after Leon gets shot by Annette, once she's made it down to the dumping area where Sherry got implanted with the Parasite by William, she is ambushed by the giant alligator. This results in Leon blowing it sky high instead of Claire. At the turntable elevator, Leon fights William's second form, instead of the pulsing asshole that is known as the third form. And after the fight, the elevator goes all the way down instead of getting stuck, which allows Leon to carry the now injured Ada to the security room bed. In the labs, Leon runs into Annette, who is pissed to say the least for him killing William. I mean, I get her being in denial over the whole monster thing, but what does she expect from him? Even with Leon wearing the RPD getup, Annette claims that he is a spy working alongside Ada. And since Mr. X isn't in the picture because this is the A scenario, he doesn't interrupt her attempt to kill Leon. And we are instead treated to this comedic scene of the lab shaking and metal pipes falling from the ceiling onto poor Annette's head. To make it more comedic, here are some sound effects to go alongside it.
Bonk!
Oh, and Leon takes the G-Virus sample from Annette. Leon holding on to the sample is short-lived, however, as Ada is waiting for him right outside the door with gun in hand. She demands him to hand over the virus and threatens to shoot him. But Leon is kind of an idiot, to be completely honest, and plays the dangerous game of, "You're not gonna shoot me." But lucky for him, his idiocy works out, and she lowers her gun. However, Leon's peripheral vision sucks ass, and he doesn't see the gun-toting Annette standing right behind Ada. This results in her getting shot, and almost falling over the railing. The two share a somber moment, but it's ruined by Ada falling down the pit. And it's further ruined by me adding this Wilhelm scream to it. Nice. Annette then dies from a concussion, I guess, and a pissed off Leon chucks the virus down the pit. Right before he reaches the train platform to escape, Leon fights William one last time. And it's none other than the pulsing asshole form. After dealing enough damage, it shifts into its fourth form, and it's ultimately put down by Leon. At the platform, the train is already departing with Claire and Sherry on board. Leon jumps on, and it's happily ever after from here. And that's it for the Leon A differences. Now on to Claire B. Claire finds herself at the back of the RPD, and after stopping the fire caused by the helicopter crash, she is forced to face off against Mr. X. But I had the rocket launcher at this point in time, so he wasn't that much of an issue. How did I come across such a weapon? Well, I'll go over that shortly. Since Leon got to the STARS office first, we experienced the same scene from the Leon A scenario, but from Claire's perspective this time. And outside the office, she catches sight of Sherry fleeing from a zombie, but is unable to catch up with her. While obtaining the animal stones, Claire is hassled continuously by Mr. X, which is a stark contrast to the simple frolicking she had to do in her other scenario. With the stones placed and the secret elevator taken down to Brian Irons' creepy taxidermy room, Brian isn't infected with the parasite this time around, but is instead hilariously grabbed and dragged down through a nearby hatch, with only half of Brian's body making it back up to Claire. Down the hatch, she must fight William instead of the G parasite. After delving into the sewers, and before Sherry slides down even further, the two of them catch a glimpse of Mr. X walking above them, instead of William. Here is another completely new scene just for this scenario. In the tunnels where Ada almost gets shot by Annette, only for Leon to take the bullet, Claire comes across him resting up against a wall. He brings her up to speed on what just happened, and implores her to save Ada from Annette. When she catches up to Annette, she isn't greeted with the barrel of a gun this time, but instead finds Annette injured. They have the same conversation as they did in Claire A's scenario, with the only difference being Annette passing out instead of looking for Sherry as well. Since Sherry wasn't infected by William, she and Claire meet up at the cable car. She asks Sherry if her mom gave her the G-Virus sample, but has no clue about it, as she isn't aware to the compartment underneath her family's picture. The two of them take the cable car to the factory on the outskirts of town, and run into the issues Leon did in his B scenario. that being Mr. X and William's third form attacking them on the turntable. When the turntable elevator stops midway through its descent, Claire gives Sherry her Made in Heaven jacket and tells her to wait in the train car while she goes to search for Annette. Right after, Claire crawls into the ducts and falls through it, and the elevator that Sherry is still on continues its descent. When Claire reaches the elevator, Sherry is nowhere to be found, just like Ada was in Leon's B scenario. In the lab's 5th floor monitor room, Claire runs into Annette, who asks her where Sherry is. A nearby monitor shows them that Mr. X is following her, and before running off again, Annette tells Claire that the sample is underneath the picture inside Sherry's pendant. Claire reaches the power room, only to find Mr. X attempting to kill Sherry. Claire tells her to throw her the pendant because it's what Mr. X is after. Sherry tosses it to Claire and crawls into a nearby vent. This is also when Claire decides the next best course of action is to goad Mr. X into falling over the railing by throwing the pendant over it. The kicker here is that right over the railing is a long drop right in the lava, which he falls right into. But like the other B scenario, this isn't the end for Mr. X just yet. At the center of the lab, Claire finds Sherry crying over her dying mother. She asks for Sherry to leave and begs for her forgiveness for being a shitty mother. But Sherry is unable to grieve because the place is about to blow up. They grab the master key Annette was holding and use it to take the Gorilla Stance elevator down to the train platform. The train isn't powered though, so Claire has Sherry wait inside it while she brings the power online. Once it is, she is attacked by the mutating Mr. X. Ada would toss her a rocket launcher after a short fight, but funnily enough, since we already had it, the Ada cutscene is skipped entirely. With the train now powered, Claire starts to get it to move, while Leon jumps aboard it. William's 5th form latches on and is defeated by Claire this time around. The three then make it to the end of the tunnel, and William is annihilated by the train's explosion. They take a breather just outside the tunnel, and Leon commends Sherry for her quick thinking with stopping the train. But Claire isn't ready to call it quits just yet, as she still has to find her brother, Chris. And those are all the differences throughout the 4 scenarios in Resident Evil 2 and its story overall. This is where Resident Evil truly came into its own, and led the series to where it is today. The story, written by screenwriter Noboru Sugimura, while not super convoluted, was grander in scope than the first games, as it built upon the groundwork that it laid with the corrupt pharmaceutical company and its virus creation, delving further into the company's depravity with its control over the small town of Raccoon City and its people, while it still retained the boogeyman persona with its invisible founders and CEOs. We did, however, get a good look at some of the faces behind the virus creation, with William and Annette Birkin. William was definitely the main antagonist of this game, with him being not just the creator of the G-Virus, but using it as well, and becoming the monster of his own design. While Annette was still a horrible person, but shed some of that for the sake of her daughter Sherry. Aside from those two, we also got the lovely Brian Irons, which if you take out the virus creation from William, then this guy is the evilest scumbag in the game, as he had no issues damning the people of the city he was sworn to protect. That's not even bringing up how he SA'd people and hunted down survivors in the RPD once the outbreak was at its peak. This guy is the worst and is beyond any sort of redemption, which is perfectly fine with me character-wise. The 2 supporting characters of Ada and Sherry were also great additions to the game, as they helped flesh out both the leads, Claire and Leon. For Claire, it was Sherry, the innocent child of the 2 monsters that destroyed this town, and almost ended up being yet another casualty to the viral outbreak. The thing I like most about her is that she wasn't just a helpless child, and was capable of traversing the RPD and the sewers below on her own, and also helped Claire by obtaining the club key. On the other side of the coin is Ada for Leon, but unlike Sherry, she is far from innocent by any means, and instead is a mysterious player in the chase for the G-Virus, with her working for a nameless company that's paying her to obtain it for them. The thing that made this character work even better is her link to the first game, with the ill-fated John and his computer password using her name. Ada was 100% using this poor dude to get closer to the viral work inside the mansion lab. And just like Sherry, Ada is far from helpless on her own, as she brought a firearm with her to Raccoon City, and can use it during her sections of the game. Without spoiling too much, we do see these two return to the series later down the line. But we will obviously get to that in later videos. Now, to talk about the leads, Claire and Leon. Since Claire's canon scenario is first, let's talk about her. Claire, a university student who has a love for motorcycles, arrived at Raccoon City in search for her brother Chris, after having weeks of no contact with him, only to end up arriving to a zombie-infested hellhole. Here, she met with Sherry, and formed a sort of motherly bond with her, which highlighted her kindness. But she isn't just kind. She is extremely capable of handling things on her own, of which we should expect nothing less from the sister of Chris Redfield. Although she seems to have taken some notes from Jill, and learned how to lockpick, which also comes in handy throughout her time in the RPD. That might be something she needs to teach her brother Chris at some point.
Asshole!
Beyond the strength she shows in the game, I find it to be a nice breath of fresh air to have someone show compassion and kindness like she does towards Sherry. These things didn't really exist in the first game in the series, as both Chris and Jill didn't have that much of a personality. Another breath of fresh air comes from the game's second lead, that being Leon. Yes, like Claire, he shows tons of strength, kindness, and perseverance throughout Resident Evil 2. But he also shows something most games wouldn't even have one of their main characters show, and that is gullibility. And I mean that in the nicest way possible too. Because it's Leon's first day on the force, and anybody thrown into this mess would be worse for wear than he was. The gullibility he shows pretty much solely lies with most of his interactions with Ada, as she wraps the poor dude around her finger and uses him to get what she wants. At least up until she ends up having feelings for him as well. And even when he finds out she's a spy trying to steal the G-Virus, he still forgives her because of his immense kindness towards others. Could all of these characters had more depth added to them? Absolutely. But let's be honest here. The amount of characters shown in this game was a huge leap from the first one. Okay, enough of the story and characters of Resident Evil 2. Now, I'm going to take some time to talk about the game's other modes, which there's quite a good amount of them. The first mode I'd like to talk about is called the Fourth Survivor. During the sewer section of the story, I mentioned that there was one survivor of the Umbrella Task Force that was sent to retrieve the G-Virus from William. In this game mode, we get to play that survivor. The Fourth Survivor. Holy shit, that was bad. I'm sorry. The survivor's name, or I guess code name in this instance, is Hunk. Yep, that's quite the code name. We don't really learn much about the dude, just that he's the sole survivor of Alpha Team and must take the G-Virus to the extraction point. This is the whole concept of this mode. You start off well equipped, but quickly learn that there are no items to pick up, which can become quite the hassle if you don't learn to ration what you have. Another thing you'll notice on the way towards Hunk's extraction is that everyone up to their dead fucking grandmother is here to try and stop you from doing so. Zombies, zombie dogs, birds, fucking Mr. X, and so on and so forth. You're given a timer which is just there for bragging rights on who can get the best time. And this mode is no cakewalk. But after a few attempts, you should get your lay of the land. And when, or if you escape, you are treated with this nice still of Hunk with his mask off. And it's just a shot of the back of his head. Very rewarding. This mode is a gauntlet to say the least. But after its completion, there really is no reason to come back to it, unless you want to better your time. And that's not a bad thing, as I do love this mode and its difficulty, but if you're seeking depth, then this isn't it. Which I can say the exact same thing for the next mode on the list. Tofu Survivor, and yes, you heard that right, is a fever dream of a mode where you take on everything Hunk did, but as a literal piece of tofu. with no weapons besides a knife and a few healing items. They sure aren't messing around with this mode, are they? Since you're pretty much kneecapped with no equipment, they grace you with one thing Hunk didn't have, and that is faster movement and more health, which you will definitely need in order to make it out alive. I, however, did not, and completely suck ass at this mode. But if you're better than me, which I don't doubt, then you'll be rewarded with this still of tofu being eaten alive. Brutal. Another benefit of this mode are the insane sounds you get to listen to while you play it, like Tofu's walking sound, or hearing him speak when he takes damage, and for me, inevitably dies. Alright, on to the next mode. Unlike the 4th and Tofu Survivor, Extreme Battle Mode adds a lot of replayability to this game. At the start, you can choose one of 3 difficulty levels, with 1 being the obvious easy mode, and 3 being the obvious hard mode. After your difficulty choice, you can then choose one of 4 characters to play as, those being Leon, Ada, Claire, and the surprise character of Chris. Each character gets their own loadout, which makes their playthroughs feel unique. And depending on what difficulty you chose, you can begin with 1 to 5 ink ribbons to save with. The reason you'll want to save is that there are multiple stages to get through, with you starting down in the Umbrella Labs and ending inside the RPD. The overall goal of this game mode is to make it to the RPD and find 4 bombs that are randomly placed throughout it. So you're going to want to make sure that you check every room in the RPD for them. Another difference between this mode and the 4th Survivor is that there are item pickups throughout the stages, which on the easier difficulty can give you an extreme amount of excess ammo.
Holy Jesus!
This mode besides the story is my favorite one in the game, and can get you to rack up hours on it after its completion. The last game mode to talk about is Arrange Mode, which there isn't much to say about it. It's just an easier version of the story mode. Yep, that's it. Alright, let's talk about the unlocks. Aside from unlocking the extra modes in the game, after you clear the A and B scenario for the first time, you'll be notified that a zombie Brad Vickers is now in the game, and possesses a special key. The issue with this is that he won't spawn unless you reach the RPD entrance on the A scenario, without picking up a single item on the way there. That may not sound so bad, but another issue is that he is a goddamn bullet sponge, and won't go down with the small amount of ammo you have at this point in time. So, you'll either knife him to death, which is dangerous and can take forever, or grab shit from inside the RPD and deal with him then. Once he's dead, you get the key to unlock a locker in the darkroom save room. Inside it are the special outfits that each character gets. Leon gets access to multiple outfits. There's his original RPD uniform, a biker-looking outfit with a leather jacket, and the best of all, his douche outfit, where he sports cargo pants, boots, a tank top, and an RPD hat. This outfit also allows him to tilt his pistol when he aims, completing the douche ensemble. Claire, on the other hand, only gets one outfit, which is yet another biker one. The jacket also has a nice flame design with the wording "Let me live" on its back, mirroring her Made in Heaven jacket from her original outfit. Since she only has one outfit, she is given something special to compensate for it. That being the Colt Single Action Army revolver. It's a lot better than Claire's normal handgun, so there's actually a benefit to obtain this in her playthroughs. The unlocks that every character can use, and that most players care about, are the infinite ammo weapons. The infinite rocket launcher you saw me use in the Claire B scenario is awarded to you after completing either scenario in less than 2.5 hours, and receiving an A or B ranking. The infinite SMG is awarded if you complete the A or B scenario in under 3 hours with an A or B ranking. And the Gatling gun is awarded for completing either scenario without saving in under 2.5 hours, with, and I'm sure you've guessed it, an A or B ranking. But let's be real with ourselves here. We will all flock towards the rocket launcher because of its immense power, with it one-shotting everything the game throws your way. This is the weapon that will continue to be an unlocked staple for the remainder of the series, with there being only a few things that outshine it in a small handful of games. Now, I know what you're thinking. That's an insane amount of unlocks. Are there any more? And the answer is... nope, that's all of it. Alright, there is one last thing I want to talk about before the obligatory ending summary of a video game review, retrospective, or whatever the hell this video turned out to be. And that is the game's audio. The audio of Resident Evil 2 surpasses the first games in every aspect. From the sound design to the voice acting, everything here has been heightened in quality. The guns all sound like they pack a punch, with the shotgun being the obvious favorite since it has the highest chance of popping the heads off zombies. Ah, music to my ears. But let's not forget the Desert Eagle, as it sounds like it could punch a hole right through multiple third form Williams and still pierce through metal. And thankfully, the critical headshots aren't just locked behind the shotgun's headshots, and you're able to pull it off with your handgun if you're lucky, so you can hear this beautiful pop sound throughout Resident Evil 2. Beyond the guns, the game's audio is the general Resident Evil package. Footsteps sound crisp, door sounds make door sounds, and zombies groan off screen to give you a heads up to their location. These things are all great, but the stuff I really want to talk about is the music and the voice acting. Resident Evil 2's soundtrack was composed by, and I'm sorry if I butcher your names, Masami Ueda, Shusaku Uchiyama, and Shun Nishigaki, and what they made here is a masterpiece in my eyes. While the soundtrack to the first game was great and had quite an interesting story behind it, the one in Resident Evil 2 just hits all the points, and has some of the most memorable tracks in the entire series. I mean, who could forget when they first walked into the RPD's front hall and heard this track? Or when you got to your first save room and heard its track, knowing that you were safe for the moment from whatever is trying to kill you. The save room theme from Resident Evil 2 is one of my favorites, and while it may not be my all-time favorite, it's extremely unforgettable. Beyond these calming tracks, they went hard with the tense and more bombastic tracks. The one that instantly comes to mind is William's third form, or what it's actually called, the third malformation of G, which is extremely tense but also uses operatic elements, as I'm sure you can hear. One last track I'll fan over before going over the voice acting is the B Scenario's credit theme. Let's be real here, it packs so much more punch when it comes right after Leon saying,
Hey, it's up to us to take out Umbrella.
And that is no attack on Claire, it's just my preferred ending to the game, and the startup to this track. Regardless of what tracks you love, there are a plethora of hits here, and what I say about it still won't do it justice, so just have yourself a listen and you'll know how great it is. The voice acting, as I said way long ago at the start of the video, is no longer hilarious to listen to, and is actually done pretty well. Granted, there are some moments where it creeps into funny territory, but overall, the work they did here is light years ahead of the voice acting in the first Resident Evil game.
Oh, Barry!
That was too close. You were almost a Jill sandwich.
You're right. Barry, thanks for saving my life.
The cast, while not being that large, all did amazing jobs, and some of them have had extensive careers after Resident Evil 2's release. The voice of Claire, Allison Court, has a giant resume that isn't just doing voiceover work. If you're a child of the late 80s or early 90s, then you might remember her as Lunette the Clown in The Big Comfy Couch.
So
And if not that, then maybe you recall her as the voice of Jubilee from the mid-90s X-Men animated series.
Time to blow this joint.
And on the off chance that it's none of those, then she retained the job of voicing Claire all the way up until 2012. Ada's voice actress, Sally Cahill, while not having the long list of work like Allison Court, still has an active career to this day. And she, like Allison, retained her voice work in the Resident Evil series as Ada up until 2012. Sherry's voice actress, Lisa J, obviously didn't reprise her role down the road, but she showed up for another Capcom game called Dino Crisis 2 as the voice of Paula Morton. Most of us, however, will remember her as the voice of Wanda Lee in the classic TV show The Magic School Bus.
You know, Miss Frizzle, I was really glad when you said I could bring my best friend Bella the Bullfrog to school.
The last voice actor I'll talk about is Paul Haddad, the voice of Leon. He didn't reprise his role as Leon down the road, but if you know anything about the voices of Leon, then you know that pretty much no one ever reprises their role as him after a game or two. Why? Well, that beats the hell out of me, to be honest. And funnily enough, he also did work in the 90s X-Men animated series, playing as a handful of different characters throughout, such as Archon and Quicksilver.
So many lives depend on me. Every solution I have tried has failed.
Sadly, though, we lost Paul Haddad in April of 2020 at the age of 56. Though he may be gone, he will forever be remembered as the first voice of Leon, the voice that helped the character become the gaming icon that he is today. Rest in peace, Paul.
Go? Where?
Hey, it's up to us to take out Umbrella.
And that is the entirety of Resident Evil 2, 1998. The game is the complete package that to this day still hasn't been overtaken in terms of quality and quantity in the Resident Evil series. It has everything from a compelling story to a huge handful of game modes to get lost in. As I'm sure you know, this game received a remake in 2019, which I will talk about when I get to that point in the series. But it goes to show just how much of an impact this game has made. Everything about it felt like catching lightning in a bottle. It was all so damn perfect. The characters, the story, and even the setting are just so memorable that it warranted the remake so that people today can experience it. To be extremely honest here, there really isn't a bad thing to say about this game. They had only 1 year to develop it, and they utterly crushed it. Hell, if there was a better term to use, then I'd use it. But I'm a simpleton and can't come up with anything. The funny thing is that on a personal note, this is not my favorite game in the series. While I can say without a doubt that it's one of the best in the series, I, however, have an immense soft spot for the next and third entry in the series, Resident Evil 3 Nemesis, which I will definitely be covering a little bit down the road. But overall, Resident Evil 2 is a fantastic game even to this day, and as long as you don't care about old graphics, then I highly recommend that you play this version, as the remake does differ in many ways from it. So, where does the series go from here? Does it continue the two playable character dynamic, or does it try something different? Well, I know the answer, obviously, but maybe you don't. And in which case, don't look it up. Please? Joking aside, I really do hope you enjoyed my video. And if you didn't, then please let me know where I can improve. But as for me, I'm going to disappear into the void until the next video releases, which at the time of me writing this, I have absolutely no clue what it could be.
That's not my problem. It's yours.
For all I know, it could be the next Resident Evil game. Ah well, future problems for future me to deal with. I hope I'll see you then, and I also hope you have a great rest of your day or night or whatever it is.